Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Our major stories tonight: a recent incident of child sexual abuse sparks outrage in Cameroon, particularly in Kribi 2 subdivision, where the incident occurred. A 67-year-old man was caught red-handed, allegedly abusing a 7-year-old girl. Human rights defenders are demanding swift legal action, emphasizing the need for justice. Away from that, the designation of Issa Chuma Bakari as a consensus candidate has sparked a fresh wave of controversy, with some leaders questioning the legitimacy of the decision while accusing the group Union for Change (UPC) of acting unilaterally. With election just around the corner, the opposition is yet to officially agree on who the consensus candidate will really be. And away from that still, travel agencies in Douala's Bonaberi and Rompoint Dado bus stations are deserted due to the lockdown imposed on Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions. The restrictions enforced by separatist fighters ahead of the October presidential elections have instilled fear in the local population and significantly impacted economic activities. Those are top stories tonight. The news in full in a jiffy. If you are just joining us, then know you're watching the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, and for presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. Recently in Cameroon, cases of sexual abuse of minors have been recurrent. The most recent is a case in Kribi where a man of 67 years old was caught red-handed violating a 7-year-old girl child. Lawyers think the sanction of serving a 6 to 7 year prison term is weak and cannot deter rapists from destroying the lives of their victims. Annabella has more on this.
The pain and trauma of being raped or sexually abused as a minor can never be explained. Recently in Cameroon, cases of minors as young as 6 being raped by their fathers or people old enough to be their grandfathers have been recurrent.
Les enfants aujourd'hui sont abandonnés à eux-mêmes. L'enfant peut faire 2 heures dehors, le parent à la maison ne sait même pas où se trouve l'enfant.
Most cases of sexual abuse take place within the family milieu, and family members are sometimes indifferent as the life of a girl child of 5 or 6 is being destroyed.
J'ai vécu une scène pareille dans mon quartier où les enfants, les parents ont pratiquement couvert. Pourquoi?
The most recent case is that of a 67-year-old man caught red-handed violating a 7-year-old girl child in a nearby bush in Kribi.
Ce qui m'a même le plus choqué, c'est de voir que c'était un papa de...
Psychosociologist Maurice Simon says the perpetrators are most often sadists or psychopaths.
Le psychopathe, c'est celui qui pose de l'acte, qui ne peut éprouver celui-là, il n'éprouve du plaisir que lorsqu'il sait que l'autre, il fait mal à l'autre.
Rape and other sexual abuses are gaining grounds in Cameroon lately. The law lawyers describe as weak, with very minor sanctions on the rapists.
La loi est assez légère et je pense qu'avec le temps, il y aura une amélioration parce que 5 à 10 ans, c'est minime.
In Cameroon, it is commonplace to find an abuser sentenced, served years in prison, comes out and is recidivist, continues with the abomination. Some furious Cameroonians think only a death penalty can bring this shameful act to a stop definitely.
Parce que même si on le met en prison, ça sera moins douloureux.
There are no valid reasons a rapist can advance for committing such an abomination, which stagnates and kills the girl child physically, mentally, psychologically, and also can destroy her future. Parents are always advised to talk one-on-one with their children whenever there is a first attempt by anybody at violating their bodies.
And the state of lockdown imposed on the population of the northwest and southwest regions for a period of 1 month has instilled fear in the hearts of local population, and this has greatly affected economic activities in this part of the country. Some bus stations in Bonaberi and Rompoint Dado here in Douala, where buses from these regions stop with passengers, are practically empty these days, and workers are idling, complaining of hardship. Mala Glory compiled the reactions of some of these drivers in the following report.
Crews are stationed, drivers on rest, while very few passengers loiter the agency. This is the most popular bus station in Bonaberi that links Douala to Bamenda and other places in the northwest region. According to workers here, the timid atmosphere is as a result of the 1-month lockdown imposed on the Anglophone regions by separatist fighters.
I'm going to Bamenda. Unfortunately, the sales girls who are there, they have just informed me that they are not traveling because Bamenda, there's a lockdown in Bamenda. So their buses are all down, grounded.
When it's lockdown in Bamenda, we are not working. As we are not working like that, we are feeling very difficulties.
At Wrong Point Dedo, motorists who travel to the southwest region share the same experience. They say the activities of armed men and the frequent killings has instilled fear in the hearts of locals.
So they don't kill someone from Munya, no money to travel, 1 point, no man, Panja they fear for go, Panja they said even a ratio boya, they will kill the ratio limit, they will kill all man they fear for go. Men go now, men go man city me go do for that people them. Yeah, men go man see the order, send people that for boost them, they go find that people that not to me if we talk.
A situation that has negatively affected economic activities.
I want to buy food in the house to my children. There's nothing because I'm not working. Because if you don't work, you don't have money.
However, the people call on the government authorities to address the problem affecting the English-speaking regions of the country in order to improve on the living standards of the population at large.
Now we talk politics. Professor Maurice Kamto received political leaders, particularly some candidates running for the October 12 presidential election. He qualified a meeting with Bello Buba Maigari, Issa Chiruma Bakari and Barrister Keremuna as cordial. These meetings at Kamto's residence in Yaoundé came as days narrowed to the presidential elections, with Cameroonians expecting a strong coalition from the opposition to beat the incumbent President Paul Biya. Innocent Aze reports on the outcome of the meeting.
As the October 12 presidential election approaches, Maurice Kamto's residence has become a consultation avenue for presidential candidates. Rejected from the presidential race, the political leader has been hosting several opposition figures for the past few days. These meetings are symbolic and, above all, politically pregnant. On September 11, Bello Buba Maigari, president of the National Union for Democracy and Progress, paved the way to Kamto's residence. On his platforms, Maurice Kamto spoke of a cordial and constructive dialogue they had. These statements were initially reinforced by Bello Buba Maigari, who spoke of a fraternal meeting and a sincere dialogue between opposition leaders. But the tone would later change, and in a statement published on September 13th, Bello confirmed his candidacy, stating that he was not concerned by speculation about a possible consensual candidate, and reiterated that only Elekam decides on the official list of candidates. He asked his activists to stay focused on the campaign. The day before his clarification, on September 12, another guest arrived in Santa Barbara, Issa Chiroma Bakari, president of the National Salvation Front Party. Maurice Kamto described this meeting as a frank and cordial exchanges with a historic figure of the opposition. Chiroma's collaborators also spoke of a fraternal meeting, emphasizing a shared commitment to unity and reconciliation among the leaders, whom they believe were unfairly excluded from the election. On September 14th, it was the turn of Barrister Keremuna, candidate of the Univer Party, to be received by Professor Maurice Kamto. On X, he stated, October 12 must be a referendum on Biya's exit. On his part, Professor Maurice Kamto emphasized the need to strengthen the opposition's collective action. Between official statements and sometimes contradictory positions, the Cameroonian opposition is still divided. Though excluded from the presidential race, Maurice Kamto remains at the heart of political discussions. But beyond the symbols and declarations, one question remains: will these meetings be enough to bring together a fragmented opposition to face 92-year-old President Paul Biya, who seeks another mandate?
We stay in politics as Leon Tiele Onanas says his party will only support the opposition coalition presidential candidate. The new president of the Patriotic Movement Organization Party made a declaration during an interview he granted to Equinoxe Media Group. Leon Tiele Onanas was recently voted as president of the Patriotic Movement Organization Party over the weekend after he resigned from the ruling CPDM party. We have details with Smart Chikangebro.
Unana is now the new president of the Patriotic Movement Organization Party. He was voted into office over the weekend after the party's extraordinary meeting. The former municipal councillor for Monatele, who recently resigned from CPDM, says that he has not been quiet since he resigned from the ruling political party. Since I resigned from the ruling political party, I have never been unemployed. I remained very busy and committed on the field and continued work for the benefit of my country. But this time around, being an observer and analyzing the socio-political situation in Cameroon, I have talked with Cameroonians of all walks of life, and my engagement remains same, which is change. Coming at a time when the opposition presidential candidates are still to have a true consensus on who to lead the coalition, the former CPDM militant says his new political outfit is still waiting. We want the opposition to unite, but unfortunately, we are noticing that some division is already coming in. We are now waiting for the outcome of the ongoing meeting with Professor Maurice Kamto and some of them. We are sure that a miracle might happen, even if it's at the last minute. As new president of the Patriotic Movement Organization Party, Leon Tiele Onanas says, our objective is to gather all the positive energy to construct a new alternative which is more credible and bring hope to Cameroonians. The new man in charge of the Patriotic Movement Organization Party says they are hoping to participate in the upcoming municipal and legislative elections, but for now, their major move is to implant the party nationwide.
Still in politics, some elites of the Southwest region have resolved to defy security threats and go in search of votes from denizens of that region. This was during a meeting with Prime Minister Chief Joseph Jangote, who during this 3-day stay in Boya received elites from 4 different divisions that make up the Southwest region. Rex Afon reports.
Security threats still linger in the Southwest region. Even its elites are aware. They are fine-tuning strategies to brave the odds as the electoral campaign period approaches.
Irrespective of the security challenges, they were even more serious than in 2018 than what we have to do. We know the situation is still there, but the Indian people are determined.
Well, the challenges that Manu has are not peculiar to Manu. The challenges that every other division in the Southwest has, amongst which most critical of which is the security challenges. But the fear factor and people, like what is happening today, when we hear that there's lockdown and people are scared to move around, those are some of the challenges we have. But we are going to look for ways to transcend some of them.
We arise feeling totally fired up and ready to do what it takes.
In the Southwest region, bravery alone may not win elections. Victory demands strategy and finesse.
Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. The voters, we have galvanized our people to register massively. We are in the field, galvanizing our people, trumping support for our candidate.
We do it door to door. We talk about issues. We talk about things that have been accomplished and how to message those things that all the local population understand and the things that are in the plans for after the elections.
For the elite members of the ruling party, winning is an obsession.
We have the same spirit, the same vision, and our affection for each other is solid. And there is no doubt about our fidelity and our loyalty because of all the good things we have received from President Biya.
As the presidential polls near on October 12, the region enters its second week of lockdown. Prime Minister Joseph Jangote urges patience, obedience, and a collective call for peace.
Now we take you out of our frontiers. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the return of members of parliament and senators is marked by tension due to petitions aimed at removing the president of the National Assembly and their offices. And in Senegal, legal aid is at a standstill due to lack of funding from the state for over 2 years now. A significant debt of over 2 billion francs CFA has accumulated, affecting court-appointed lawyers, as Siri Chakutio tells us.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Monday, September 15th, marks the return to school for members of parliament and senators, but the atmosphere is already tense. Petitions aimed at removing the president of the National Assembly, Vital Kamerhe, and the Senate, Jean-Michel Sama Lukunde, as well as members of their offices, are creating tensions. At the origin of this revolt is two elected officials from the presidential party Union for Democracy and Social Progress. The budget session opening this September 15th in the Democratic Republic of Congo risks being slowed down by this political battle, which illustrates explosive tensions within the majority formed around President Felix Tshisekedi. The petitions against the offices of both houses of parliament are being filed on the day the government is due to submit its draft budget to the National Assembly. Vital Kamerhe, president of the National Assembly and a long-standing ally of head of state Felix Tshisekedi, is particularly targeted along with members of his office. The petition is even led by Crispin Bidul, a former member of his Union for the Congolese Nation Party. It has already collected more than half of the signatures of the Assembly's 500 deputies. And in Senegal, legal aid is running at a standstill. For more than 2 years, the state has not provided funding to the office responsible for paying court-appointed lawyers. A debt estimated at more than 2 billion francs CFA has accumulated, threatening a service that is essential for the most disadvantaged litigants. State payment to the legal aid office had already been irregular since 2021. This service is nevertheless essential for those who cannot afford a lawyer.
And that's it for this first part of the news. Talking Point comes up next. The designation of Issa Chuma Bakari as a consensus candidate has sparked a fresh wave of controversy. What's the reason behind all of this? That's what we are going to be answering with my guest tonight. He's known as Professor Marc-Anthony AKUHMBOM. He is a political analyst. Good evening. It's a pleasure to have you on Talking Point tonight. We'd like to know from you, what is your understanding of a consensus candidate in the context of Cameroon's presidential elections that comes up on the 12th of October?
Good evening, and thank you, Fogwe Immaculate, for receiving me at your platform. It is indeed a pleasure. I am saying good evening to Africans, good evening to Cameroonians in particular, watching from wherever in the world right now. It is indeed a beautiful evening. You see, to begin responding to your question, you asked me about my understanding of a consensus candidate in the context of Cameroon's presidential election. Yeah, you see, a consensus candidate is a candidate that is supposed to be chosen from among the 11 contestants for this presidential election, I mean the opposition party, which implies that in relation to the situation at hand, since there are 11 of them running, the 11 parties were supposed to come together with the candidates together. Then they sit, discuss their positions and views, and then they come to a consensus where out of the 11, one is chosen, and then a written consent of the rest 10 is taken down. It's supposed to be written. A written consent is supposed to be taken down. And then in this, each of these, the 10 are supposed to, in their written consent, indicate their voluntary withdrawal from the race. When they indicate their voluntary withdrawal from the race, they now endorse the candidate whom they had unanimously decided that should be their candidate for the elections. But if you look at it, that is not the case that is happening so far. That is not what is on the ground. We have seen them sack. They went to Fumban. A number of them, they went to Fumban, came back, sat in Yaoundé, and we have been hearing some of them saying that they are in for a coalition. But unfortunately, no result has been able to come out of it. So if we want to talk about the situation of Cameroon, a consensus candidate cannot be chosen from without the consent of those parties involved in the presidential race. A consensus candidate in this case cannot be chosen by a party that is not involved or by parties that are not involved in the race. They can only come in to make the position of those involved stronger. So, but if that is not the case, then we don't have a consensus candidate so far.
Now, Professor, how do you interpret the dissatisfaction for opposition parties such as that of the UNDP led by Bello Buba Maigari, who saw a communique circulating online with the choice of Issa Chuma Bakari as a consensus candidate? What's your interpretation on this?
My definition and understanding of what a consensus candidate is, it gives you an understanding why some opposition parties, for example, the UNDP, have kind of distanced themselves or dissociated themselves from the present so-called consensus candidate, Issa Chiroma, whom in reality is not a consensus candidate because he was not chosen by the 11 who are involved in the race. The individuals who sat down and made that declaration, I don't know how the UPC 2025 for change, Union, what I say is Union pour le changement, 2025 is not involved in the presidential election. So they do not have the capacity to make that choice. And if they have decided to kind of endorse a political candidate or a candidate running for the presidential election, that is good. But from every indication, the other 11 will not see it as a situation of good faith because they were the ones who were supposed to sit down and make a choice among themselves. And if that has not happened, then we have a problem, first of all, with all of them who are opposition leaders, opposition party leaders and aspirants, or let us just say aspirants, who are candidates for the elections. They have a problem. What have they been doing for this period of time that they have not been able to discuss, come up and make a decision of who should be that consensus candidate? If they are now refusing, that they don't want to associate with an individual because some other individual decided to choose for them, then there is a problem.
Is it necessary for all opposition candidates to adhere to the logic of a consensus candidate in order to achieve their goals?
From your question, I would say no, it is not a necessity for all opposition candidates to adhere to the logic of a consensus candidate in order to achieve their goals. Their parties have different goals, and some of them have different positions, ideologies when it comes to politics. Their political ideologies might not even meet. For example, there are people there who are running for unity state, while there are others who are federalists, there are others who are decentralized, others are. So if you look at it, and there are different kind of federalists that are coming together with different positions when it comes to federalism. And you look at it, you realize that the problem is so deep, and that is where I think that there's a serious problem since they have been coming to sit down to discuss, because different positions, different views, different ideologies, it is not easy. But this time around, they were supposed to listen to Cameroonians. They were supposed to listen to Cameroonians, listen to the electorate. We do not want a particular political party to be in power. We just need change for the nation, which implies, for the moment, we're supposed to come to an agreement. Let's look for a transition candidate. This transition candidate should be able to put into consideration a position that the various parties will agree on. We should say, okay, you are not coming to run for more than 2 terms, a unique term. And the unique term should be 5 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, or 7 years still. In this unique term, these are the things that are supposed to be achieved. And you are supposed to form a unity government. And that is what we're expecting.
Given the divisions within the opposition, do you see a possibility that another group could unite to choose their own consensus candidate?
And anything is possible. You see, yes, for the fact that there is kind of, I don't want to use the word division, there are many political parties. And for the presidential election, 11 opposition political parties are running for the presidential election. Each of them has what they want to achieve for their party, not for the people. Because if you are to achieve something for the people, you will need to go out and ask the people. And if you realize it, these people don't care what the people think. They don't care what the people think. And as a result of that, that is why they have not been able to contact the people. The people are not their interest. So I think, and I will still repeat it here today, let Cameroonians not depend on opposition parties or opposition candidates anymore. It is time for the electorate. Let the electoral college make a choice of a candidate. You know, when we talk of electoral college, some people might be asking the question, are you going to be in the heart of everybody to influence them to go for one candidate? I think that if the civil society takes that decision and tells the people this is whom we should vote for, they will hear. And being one of the civil society actors, within these days we are going to take a stand and decide whom we think that is fit to run for us. And we will disseminate that information, ask Cameroonians to follow us in that path. Let us choose our own candidate and follow that candidate. That is what we are going to do. This one is not just going to be an endorsement. It's going to be something that is going to be more than endorsement, because we are going to make sure Cameroonians follow that path in order to free Cameroonians from this evil that I'm seeing that is happening.
Thank you so much, Professor, for accepting my invitation on Talking Point tonight.
Thank you very much for giving me a platform. Thank you for the evening.
And that's what put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention. Stay in the company of interesting programs on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now. See you tomorrow, same time, God willing.